Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host, Alexandra. And before we dive into today's episode, which I'm really looking forward to, I want to share this week's collection wall item with you all. So if you're new here, I am building a She Ace That collection wall of items that guests want to provide that represents their story or their journey or the conversation we had. And this week's item is from a conversation I had with Just Connect back in season 1. She sent me her Max Out Mindset Train Confident shirt, and I absolutely love it. For those who don't know Just Connect, she's a mental performance coach who's worked with Olympic and professional athletes. She was a collegiate athlete and now helps athletes unlock their potential by working on the mental side of the game. In our conversation, we just talked a lot about how the mental game isn't just some extra thing that you work on when you have time. It's the foundation of everything. She talked about how athletes can have all the physical talent in the world, but if they don't have the mental tools to handle pressure, push through adversity, to actually believe they belong, that's what holds them back. And the Max Out Mindset shirt represents the philosophy, pushing past your limits and trusting yourself even when it's uncomfortable. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Go back to that episode. It's extremely valuable, and I'm grateful to have her as a part of She Ace That. And that goes for coaching too. When I first started coaching, I jumped into various coaching roles probably earlier than I had the quote unquote credentials for. I was learning on the fly. I had mentors that I was really relying on. I was honestly just figuring it out every day and adjusting based on what I went through at that practice or during that match. And I made mistakes, especially after starting She Ace, that I've learned so much from incredible mentors that I'm so fortunate to have now. But I was also reaching out to people who were doing this longer than me. I found those mentors. I asked a million questions, and everybody has different coaching philosophies or why their team dynamics are a certain way. I watched other coaches run practices and I had to get comfortable admitting when I didn't know something instead of pretending I had it all figured out, which sometimes we have to fake it till we make it as a coach. You don't want your athletes to think that they can't have confidence in you either. But it's also okay to not always know what you're doing. And nobody starts out as the perfect coach. And I don't know if there's ever a perfect coach, but we can continue to grow. But here's what I learned. Nobody is going to give you permission to take up space. And that's something we talk about today during this interview. But nobody's going to hand you confidence or tell you you're ready. You either decide you belong and you show up, or you don't. And that's true whether you're starting your first coaching gig, trying to launch a program from scratch, or stepping into a space where there aren't a lot of people who already have done it before. So that brings me to today's guest, Dr. Anitra Brockman. She is the head coach of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore Volleyball Program. It's the first NCAA D1 HBCU to add men's volleyball. I love paving the path. This should already have existed, of course. Her story is incredible. She didn't play volleyball at competitive levels. She started as a parent coach, just trying to help her daughter's team stay together. And now she's making history. And we talk about what it's like being the only woman in the room, how she's built her program from the ground up, just the reality of being a female coach in spaces that aren't always the most welcoming. But we also talk about something really important, and that's why I started She Ace That, and that's accessibility, because volleyball is expensive, like really expensive. And if we want to grow this sport, especially men's volleyball, if we want more kids to have access to it, we have to actually do something about that. Dr. Brockman's not just talking about it, she's actively creating those opportunities. So this conversation is for anyone who's ever felt that they didn't belong, for coaches who are just starting out and figuring it out as they go, and for anyone who wants to see the sport become more inclusive. And with that, let's get into my conversation with Dr. Brockman. Dr. Brockman, welcome to She Ace That.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexandra. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here. And I have to tell you, the work that you've been doing and continue to do to grow this sport is absolutely incredible. I would like to go back to the beginning of your sports journey and coaching journey. What brought you to volleyball, and when did you know coaching was your calling?
It's a funny story. So I did not play at a high level. I played volleyball in 7th and 8th grade. That's when I was first introduced to it. We're not going to say how long ago that was. But that was pretty much like the hard stop of my volleyball experience because I was a softball player and I was really good at softball. My mom had played, so it was just in my blood. I felt that was my sport. Fast forward to me having children, and one day my daughter, who's now 23, going to be 24, said, "Hey, I want to play volleyball," and she was in seventh grade. And I said, "Man, I remember that feeling." I got her all the knee pads, everything she needed, and then she said, "I wanna play club," and I said, "Okay." Fast forward to that, put her in club, she had a coach that just wasn't as present as they needed to be, most professional way to say it, and so, uh, she's like, "Our season's gonna end if we don't have a coach," and I said, "You know what? I'll do it." And so I said, "Let me find out all the things I need to find out to get myself up to date on this sport." It was just a temporary thing, at least I thought. And then next thing I know, the next year, she's like, "I wanna play club," and that club was looking for coaches, and I became a regional club coach, and then the more I was learning more about the sport and wanting to really be around those kids and make an impact in their lives, I was like, "I think I really wanna do this." And then once I got to high school, coaching in high school, I think that was when I got the bug of, I wanna be a college coach. I believe I can do this. And I think along my path, being around people that had played at a high level, that had been in this sport for such a long time, I had my doubts of, I don't think that I am cut out at this level or to go any further there than where I'm at. And I think honestly, once I found out, it just really takes believing in the young people that you're coaching and believing in them to be a coach. You don't have to have extensive experience. You gain that along the way. But I think over the years, the athletes I've coached have really appreciated having a coach who's present and cares about them. And I think that's when figured it was my calling that, I think volleyball found me at the right time. And I also, being that I was an athlete, I understood what the athletes I was coaching, their passion for the game, their desire to want to get better and do good at something. But I think also I realized I just care about people genuinely. And I think for me, that's why I got into coaching and it stuck.
It's funny how when we do have a calling to coach, it sometimes finds us. It's not always us going to find it. You don't need to have every single thing figured out if somebody's interested in taking on their own team. I think it's all about learning in the moment too and seeing what works for you and just being adaptable. Coaching your kids and having to fulfill that role at that time. What was that experience like as a parent coach at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I tell you, when I first started, man, it was difficult, especially I started coaching girls volleyball. So it was a lot tougher coaching my daughter and navigating that than it has been coaching my son. And so I would say as a parent coach, having that fine line of immediately or at the beginning saying this is how it's structured, and having that separation of, having the conversation with your child and explaining to them, when we're here, I'm coach, but when we leave, I'm mom. But then having a team parent meeting, I think also helped at the beginning, especially that 14, 15's age. They don't understand the dynamics at that age. So for them, it was, oh, you're playing favorites, or you're doing this, or why is she playing over me? And I honestly think being a parent, you're harder on your child than you
Yep.
are your actual athletes. And
Mhm.
I think hearing, especially from my kids, they have said themselves like, "Man, you're hard on me than you were on my teammates." And it's true. Well, I think being their parent, you hold them to a higher standard. But then I think also the coach, you feel as a coach, you've got to be harder because all eyes are on you. So having those conversations early and often so that they understand this is the dynamic. Yes, this is my child. We have the same last name. Let's get
Mhm.
it out in the air. But then for them, once they understand, hey, she's structured and she knows what, she's got standards, I think that kind of helps separate it. Um, So it is difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's the easiest thing ever. No,
Mhm.
it's difficult. And seeing how parents have done it and knowing that I've done it, I commend every parent coach because you're also getting backlash. Even if you on the front side are doing things the right way, you still have parents and other people on the outside who don't know what you're doing at practice, and they still are your biggest critics and they still have something to say. And I think it's hard because, we're human and we want people to see, hey, they're doing things the right way, but naturally you still have critics and people that don't know all the things that you put into it. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard just to answer your question. It's just really hard.
It really is, and sometimes it's like, okay, well, there two truths can happen. Like, you can be coaching your athlete, your child, who also can be doing everything the best you can to make it an even playing field and really wanting what's best for the whole team. When you would leave practice, would that be kind of your cutoff time from being coach and changing to mom? Or like, how did you navigate car ride home conversations from that perspective?
Yes, absolutely. It had to because I think when I first started coaching, I didn't have that separator of once that we got in the car or once we got home, it was constant volleyball, volleyball, volleyball. So, and then it became, well, we don't want to talk about volleyball anymore as a family because it was all volleyball. It was like I was watching film, I was talking about lineups, so I had to separate, like put that separator myself. And then I think, especially once I started coaching my son in high school, that was when I was like, listen, now my son is a teenager. I don't have this 10 to 12-year-old little kid in the car anymore. He's high school. And so I had to put the separator out there and explain to him, like, look, this is our time now. This is mom, son time. Let's not talk about volleyball. And I think there are times where hurt feelings come into play too. And so I had to be mindful of that. And so, yes, the car rides home or once we got home, it was okay, we're done. Maybe the car ride home was a chance to kind of vent it out and talk about it. But once we got home, we were done talking about it. It was only things that were related to our family or household, and I think that kinda navigate a lot of heartaches and headaches during the course of the seasons I coached, especially my son.
I really commend you for that, and I'm not shocked how wonderful of a parent and role model you are. You were the president of the Ohio High School Boys Volleyball Association and played a key role in getting boys volleyball officially sanctioned by the OHSAA. So I want to ask you, why was getting boys volleyball sanctioned by them so important? What was that calling for you, and how did that come about?
So I had the pleasure of serving as the president for the Ohio High School Boys Volleyball Association. And, I couldn't sit here and say I did that all by myself. There were so many people instrumental in making that happen that I can't name them all. But I definitely want to give shout out to all of the folks in Ohio that have helped with that because the process was a journey. First Point Volleyball specifically also helped us along the way too, which, they've been instrumental on the collegiate side, but they're also instrumental on the high school side as well. And I will tell you, it was important to get it sanctioned because Ohio had boys volleyball for a while, but it had not been recognized as an official sport. And so, because of that, a lot of high schools in the state weren't going to add it. And so we felt it was important to get sanctioned by Ohio High School Athletic Association. So then that way, it equals access. Access equals opportunity. And there were boys in high schools that wanted to play the sport, but they didn't have it. And they had to go venture down, see if the high school down the street from them, if they were eligible to play at that high school. We had homeschool kids wanting to play. So I just think it created more of an opportunity for boys who wanted to play the sport to play the sport. And it also, club was growing exponentially. So I think now that we've got high school at the Ohio sanctioned, then club continued to grow. When you grow the sport at those levels, then that naturally is going to grow it at the collegiate level. So I definitely think it was important that we did it. I was very excited and happy to be part of that process and grateful to the OHSAA for their belief in it and supporting it. And just to see how it doubled, I mean, almost tripled in size to when I was coaching to where it is now, it's truly amazing. And I'm so glad that they are continuing the work they are in Ohio.
We need people like you to be vouching for those opportunities, and it just helps so many athletes. For any coaches who want to be advocates for the sports in their state and maybe are going through something similar, is there any advice you would give? How do you push through for change while also coaching your teams too?
Don't give up. Don't
Yeah.
give up. I think it's easier to give up and say, you know what, it's not worth it versus
Mhm.
doing the hard work. Do the hard
Mhm.
work. Once you get through the grunt work, the easy part's on the other side. And I think, you know, getting the right support also, like I mentioned, first point volleyball, partner with those folks. They're amazing. They really are amazing. They will support the growth of the game no matter where you're at. And I think if you get the right people supporting you, you get out there and do the grassroots. I think that's where some of the programs wanting to start, they kind of fail before they get started because they don't want to do the the grassroots. They don't want to do the grunt work. Get out there and go talk to athletic directors. Go out there and go to clubs and talk to these kids. I think the high school that I was coaching at, we were a small Division II Catholic high school, and volleyball was when I first took over the program, it wasn't a very strong sport, and a lot of the boys that I got were baseball, basketball, football players, and it's like, "Come on," or they were baseball players who got cut. Let me rephrase that because they couldn't play at the same time, but I went out and got kids that had played maybe in grade school because in Ohio we have grade school. A lot of our Catholic schools have grade school, so they start in third grade. So it just, you get kids that say, "Hey, come out to an open gym, get some pizza, play some music, and get it set up a net." And they're like, "Oh," because a lot of those skills equate, right? Basketball, I love the multi-sport athletes. Love them. So I think if people are willing, they say they want to start it, you can't just say it. My favorite phrase is you've got to be willing to walk through the door, not just talk through the window. So if you are willing to walk through that door, you've got to commit and follow through with it. And don't just talk through that small little window that's not going to get you anywhere.
I fully agree. One of my really good friends, she actually coached the freshman and JV team while I was an assistant varsity coach. And so the past few years, she worked on starting a boys volleyball program at the high school there and started it from scratch, and I think what she did too was just reach out to as many people as she could who have done something similar, whether it was for girls or boys, and just had to, really round up kids to see if they wanted to play and start from scratch and now have a really good program. And, they're looking at the fundraising. There is so much that goes into it. But I think once you look at those stories of people taking the chance and advocating and starting something, it's so worthwhile because you're changing so many athletes' lives for the future.
Absolutely.
You won a state championship with Baden in 2022, right before leaving for Central State. So that's absolutely incredible. And I want to say a huge congratulations to you on that. So, what did winning that state championship mean to you at that time?
Oh my goodness. I don't even think I have the right amount of words to, explain how I felt. I think because I came into the program, 2018, 2019, they had not won very many games. It was about building the culture. I got to that high school because one of the kids I coached club went to the high school and he said, "Do you want to come be our high school coach?" And I said, well, don't you have coaches?" And he said, "Well, there are a couple of moms that helped start the program, which Krista Schuler and Barb Pate, shout out to those women because they did amazing by getting it started." And so I went to a game, showed up, met them, and the rest was kind of history. It was just getting out there and getting it started. And I met these freshmen my first year, and it's ironic because my last year, those freshmen were seniors, and we made it to the state championship. And I remember my first year them saying, we want to win state. And in my head, it's like, well, we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do. But I never once allowed them to believe that they couldn't. And I think that once we made it to state the year before, but we had lost in the semifinals. And that was so devastating to those guys. And we got back in the gym. And then the next year we made it. I just remember, I remember telling them maybe a few weeks before that I had got the Central State job. And so I didn't want that to impact how they felt or how they felt in terms of finishing their season. And I knew I just had to tell them because I knew they were going to announce it. And so they said, "Okay, coach, we're winning this for you." And I said, "No, we're winning it for us, for our program, and for all the hard work you guys put in." And I just when that whistle blew and that ball went down and we won, just tears in my eyes. Just tears because I was so proud of those young men for all the adversity they had been through, the 4 years of hard work and belief and believing in, uh, the systems and believing in the vision that I had for the program and each other. And I think just knowing that that was my final time with that program, because the whole entire school, it wasn't just our program, the entire school from the principal to the athletic director, so supportive and by far my favorite of all the high school coaching jobs I had. Baden was absolutely and will always be my favorite high school coaching job.
It was such a good ending to that time too, and I feel like it just shows how much of an impact you had on that program, and everybody bought into the idea of working hard towards winning states, and it happened, and it just gives me chills to think about that because very minimal teams obviously get the opportunity to go to states, and then on top of actually saying they won it, and I think it just is a huge testament to you and a great ending before your next chapter of your career, so that's really incredible. Would love to get into something that I created this platform for and I'm really passionate about, but you are a woman leading a men's D1 volleyball program, and there aren't many that get the opportunity to do that. So, what has your experience been like as a woman leading a men's D1 program?
My experience has been amazing. I think being that I've coached both men's and women's at the collegiate level, there's a difference in the two. I feel like coaching women, they want more connectivity and, feeling part of something. Whereas coaching the men, they want that autonomy of well, they like being connected and feeling connected, but they don't like to talk much unless it's off the court. On the
Yeah, of
court, they don't
course.
like to talk much, but, they like autonomy. They like to feel as if, "Hey, this was my idea." And so, I think it gives me the best of both worlds. It allows me to come in as a female coach and be able to have a voice in a platform where there aren't very many female voices, right? And it allows me to I think at the end of the day, it shows that the sport should have there's no gender when it comes to leadership. And I think that these guys respect the vision and foundation that I've established, and they also respect me as a person. They don't respect me just because I'm a female and their coach. They respect me because I come in and I'm a leader for them that they signed up to come be part of this and they believe in what we're going to do and what I said that I believe we'll do. And I think for me it's important because I I think when I looked back and I realized I was like, wait a minute, there aren't any other women on the men's side that are true Division 1 head coaches. Nikki Sandlin paved the way for Division 1 too, but and then you can look at the majority of the women coaches on the women's side that have paved the way. There are so many that I think are trailblazers that I am grateful for that have paved the way. But on the men's side, someone had said it. They're like, "You're a trailblazer." And I'm like, "Wait a minute.
Mhm.
Wait a minute." You have to sit back and think for a minute. It's like, "What? That's actually crazy to think about it." But if that's what I need to be to help pave the way for other women who want to be in this space, then that's what I'm going to be, because I think it's important that we don't overlook that. Don't I think many times people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the gender or, you know, I'm sorry, that doesn't change. I wake up, I'm still a woman. I'm
Yep.
still a woman. So I'm very blessed to be in this space and fortunate. And I am going to use every opportunity I have to help uplift other women who want to be here and to be a support system for other women who are in this game, whether they're coaching on the women's or the men's side. And I'm going to continue until I have to put my whistle down.
It's crazy that we're still trying to fight our way into that area, given that volleyball has been majority like a female sport, right? Majority females playing in various levels. And now, obviously, thankfully, like we are working towards boys volleyball becoming more prominent too and men's volleyball, but their future holds amazing things thanks to leaders like you. That's what we're all working towards together. What is something people don't see about the pressure of leading men as a female?
I don't think people see, because as a woman leader, and I can't speak for all women, but I feel like as a woman leader, all the pressure is on me. And whether it's I put it on myself or not, it's there. And I feel
Mhm.
like things that maybe male coaches, like things that they might not have to worry about, I feel are magnified for us.
For
And I
sure.
feel like, I mean, it could be even small things, what you're wearing. I mean, you see it all the time in media. A female coach comes in the gym wearing an outfit that looks very nice on her, but then she's getting scrutinized for that. A female coach made a comment that someone says, "Oh, she's too emotional." It's like we have to constantly be on display. And the one thing I said I was never going to do is change who I am. I'm always going to be authentically myself. And
Mhm.
whether it is liked or it isn't, whether it is popular in circles or it isn't, I don't care. I just frankly don't care. I feel like if I can't be authentically myself, then why am I here? Why am I doing this? These athletes are smart. They see a fraud a mile away. They know when you aren't being true to yourself, and they know when you are showing up trying to be something you're not. And so, I've got quirkiness and my athletes love it. I've got, I forget things. I'm human. I'm human and I'm not apologizing for it. And I don't feel like just because I'm a woman that I have to be put on display or that I have to have a certain appearance or a certain, style because society says so. I'm going to
Yep.
show up and be myself authentically, and people can accept it or not, but that's just how it's going to be.
And we need that. We break the molds of what we're trying to be put into by others. And you do bring a good point up. I do feel as though males can get away with a lot more from being too tough. I talked to a few other college coaches and their genuine intentions, both inside the gym and outside the gym, and what they lead with so that they are those positive mentors for their athletes.
Absolutely.
What misconceptions do you want to dismantle about women coaching men?
I would say for me, the biggest misconception is that they the assumption is that women are too emotional and that we don't know how to coach male athletes because they're not emotional. Well, I'm here to tell you, I have allowed, especially with my team, and raising a son. I raised a son who I fully allowed to express his emotions and wear his emotions on his sleeve. But with this team, I have given my team a space where they are allowed to be vulnerable. And I think that being a female coach, that's something we bring to the table, is
Mhm.
allowing these young men to be vulnerable and know that it is okay to be vulnerable and talk about your feelings. And it is okay if you don't fit a certain stereotype. It is okay. And the other piece is, I think, you don't have to have this commanding, screaming voice to be the leader of a team. You can have a calm demeanor, but still get your point across. I can tell the team off just the way I'm talking to you without having to raise my voice, and they get the point. It's so funny. There are certain phrases that I say that they know now. Like I say, I need your help. And they're like, uh oh, we're in trouble. What did we do? I'm like, I need your help. So, I just think, that we need to throw all the misconceptions out the window. I think that whether it's volleyball, basketball, any sport, women can lead and we have a seat at the table. And yes, we bring our own chairs, but at the end of the day, um, we need to really just knock all those misconceptions out of the room. And I think also it helps when you have male leaders who support female leaders in this space too, because there are very many. There are a lot. I have a lot of male mentors that support me and have helped me navigate through my collegiate career. And so, there are a lot of men out there who support women leaders in this role. And so I think also having them speak up and identifying things when they're inappropriate and helping elevate and understanding that we need to have a seat at the table. They can also bring a seat for us at the table too.
There are allies out there more than we probably even recognize or know. And I got some advice where it was like, identify a coach out there that you really resonate with and try to follow them and track them, even if it's a smaller coach that you can get some one on one mentorship with. And I think when we find those partnerships that you can feel safe and trusting in those situations, it goes a long way. And I think the support there is unmatched. And I loved your point though about female misconceptions being too emotional, because I feel like if a female did something and the male did the same thing, the female could be looked at as emotional and the male would be just looked at as passionate, right? We can still have passion and still give grace to our feelings in this life. Like that's the healthy thing to do, while also understanding that you don't have to raise your voice. You can still get a point across without crossing a line or boundary that maybe isn't as fair. How do you protect your confidence in spaces where you may be the only woman in the gym or room or at the table?
I take a breath. I just take a breath. Our season's about to start. We're about to go to Puerto Rico in 2 days. And I think for me, it's just taking it all in, taking a breath and walking in head held high and standing firm and owning, who I am and what I stand for. And just really, I think for me, I just don't tolerate disrespect. I don't tolerate, there are just standards, upholding my standards. And I think if you stand strong in your standards and your values, I think your confidence will follow you. I think people sometimes equate confidence with cockiness, and I beg to differ. That cockiness is you just not being humble. And I think I'm the complete opposite of it. I'm very humble. And I think that's why sometimes people can misunderstand me. I think a lot of times people think, oh, she's just too nice or she's just too this. And it's like, well, if you just got a minute to get to know me, then you actually would find out that I'm very passionate and adamant about this team and this program succeeding. I'm very passionate about succeeding myself, but I actually care more about the success of these young men than I do about my own personal development and success. W's are great, but at the end of the day, I want to know that I went home and I left knowing that each one of these young men knows that I care about them and that they know that I'm a phone call away. And I I think that sometimes we lose sight of what's important because we get so caught up in the W's and the L's.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, that's part of our job. The W's and the L's dictate my job. I'm not delusional, but I also think you can do both. You can do both. If you care about your athletes, then they'll start putting that out on the court, producing that on the court. If you put out and show them what how you feel about them, if you show them you don't care, then they're not going to care when it comes to playing on the court. If you show them that you care about their grades, you care about attitude, you care about more than just volleyball, then they'll actually give you more than what you're asking them to put in.
Those other smaller things that all come together that can really make it worthwhile. For coaching boys, are there tangible things to have them maybe buy in more to that vulnerable space?
With this team, no. Honestly, I think what helped with this team, and I think this is a difference between coming into an already established program from my perspective. versus building a program. Building this program from the ground up, when I was recruiting, I told each one of them what my vision was for the program, and they had the buy in the minute they signed. Then, over the course of the year, once they signed, we had Zoom meetings, and every Zoom meeting we talked about, okay, these are our standards. This is what it looks like for practice. This is what our game expectations. This is our playbook. This is our handbook. So we had a chance to actually talk about this is what our philosophy is for this. You know, I'm a big player led mentality person. And so once I shared that with them and told them, you know, it doesn't mean you guys run crazy and you get to do everything. We still have standards. But what it means is you guys get a say. I'm not an authoritative coach. I'm a coach that wants that collaboration and I want the players to have a voice because I feel like that's where you get the most buy-in. You get the most buy-in when they feel like, man, I got to build this. It wasn't just coach. I got to build this alongside the coaching staff.
Mhm.
This is part of my legacy too. And I think at the end of the day, you know, if you just show that you care about them as individuals, everything else is going to follow.
You kind of give them a piece of the foundation of what makes the whole team the team. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's like buying stock. You give them a piece of that stock and they have some ownership. And it's like if we lose the stock, we all lose, right? If the
Yep.
market crashes, we all crash. We all fail. So I think it's important that they feel invested just as much as the coaching staff.
That's a great analogy, especially from the boys' perspective of just them wanting more of an autonomy focus. Like, obviously, they're buying into the team, but there's just a different environment to it. So I think that's a really great tool. What would you say to a young female coach who dreams of coaching?
Don't give up on your dream. Do
Yeah.
not give up on your dream because if you do, you just crush the dream of another little girl that will look up to you someday. So don't give up on your dream. Find a mentor, someone that can help you, someone that's where you want to be. I've always been told, you know, the phrase dress for the role you want, not the one you have. So find a mentor that's in a role that you eventually want. It may not be a role you want immediately, but if you're coaching club, then find a college mentor. That way, within that 5-year time frame, you'll get to your dream, your goal a lot quicker than you would have had you not had a mentor. I think that was key for me, having a mentor. And the other thing I would say is you don't need permission. You don't need permission to open that door and walk into the room. You don't
Mhm.
need permission to have a voice, and you don't need permission to be able to say, I want to coach in this space. No matter if it's coaching on the men's side or the women's side, you don't need permission. All you need is the belief in yourself, a mentor, and then just drive. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need anyone's permission or validation. And I think that's kind of where early on in my coaching career, I made those mistakes of wanting that validation and seeking it and taking feedback from people that I wouldn't take advice from. And I think that that was huge. If I had have listened, if I could go back 5 years, 10 years and kind of tell myself, "Hey, don't listen to those people. They don't want you to be where you are today." But, you know, I think also things happen for a reason. So without having that adversity, I definitely wouldn't be where I am either. So I definitely just don't want young female leaders to give up. That's where we lose sight of gaining traction in this sport, of
Yeah.
adding more female leaders. Whether you want to be a head coach or an assistant coach or a dovo, whatever that is, you belong in this space and you don't need permission or validation. Go do the dang thing. Go do it.
Yeah. Don't wait for somebody to tell you you can. Just go do it yourself. I love that. Thank you for sharing that as females. That's the thing we need to hear from other females, those success stories of where you might have felt held back in certain environments, but others were catalysts for you. As long as we give ourselves the opportunities, there's nothing to lose. And I think we all hold ourselves back more than we need to in so many ways, inside of sports and outside of sports and professionally and everything. Like you say, we all deserve a seat at a table one way or another.
Absolutely. And we're hard on ourselves already.
We
And I
are.
think that, for me, and I still have moments, you're human. You're still going to have moments of doubt, but I think as I've gotten older and gained more experience over the years, I think for me initially it was I don't belong here because I didn't play. I didn't play in college. I didn't play in high school. And I think there are times I'll be in a room with colleagues and I feel like I don't belong. But, as I continue coaching year after year, it was like, stop comparing your journey to someone else's. Just because you didn't play, it doesn't make you less of a coach. Just because you didn't do this doesn't make you less of anything else than someone else. Our journeys are all different. They're designed that way. I tell my team all the time, it's God's design. God's design is why we all have gone through whatever journey we've gone through. And it's not for us to decide, but it's for us to pick the right path to choose to be on. And for me, I think, with this journey, I don't regret any part of it. I wouldn't change any part of it because I wouldn't be the person I am today. But I will say it is important to continue to believe in yourself, have confidence, and walk in with your head held high and know that, yes, I didn't play at a high level, but man, the amount of work I put in to be a student of this sport, to become the best coach that I could be for my team, that deserves all the accolades in the world that, a trophy can't fill.
I totally agree. And we don't give ourselves the credit for the credentials we do have. You still were an athlete. You still wanted to learn. You didn't play volleyball at highest levels. Doesn't mean that you're not entitled to starting a program and coaching collegiate athletes and still being a mentor to them. Anybody can do any job they want. They just have to try and start. I catch a lot of people putting themselves into boxes where they're like, well, what credentials do I have to do X, Y, and Z? And it's like, well, you can create your own, and we're all in control of our own journeys in that way, which I think is really incredible.
Absolutely.
So, VP of Athletics Tara Owens hired you at Central State and then brought you to UMES for this historic opportunity. UMES is the first NCAA D1 HBCU to add men's volleyball, and you recruited 18 players for your inaugural roster with athletes from all over. Can you share what you were looking for when recruiting those players for a program that was just starting and didn't exist yet?
Yes. So I just want to touch on VP Tara Owens
Mhm.
really quickly. She is a tremendous leader, female leader. And without her support and belief in me, not just at Central State, but also here, I think it's important to note to anyone who wants to get into collegiate coaching if you don't have an athletic director that supports you, then I apologize because I am just grateful to have a supportive athletic director. Also, our president, Dr. Heidi Anderson, another female leader, she is also instrumental behind starting men's volleyball here. So, without having those two strong female leaders, I certainly wouldn't be in a position where I am today to be able to lead the program here at UMES. But to answer your question in terms of players that I was looking for, I knew I had to make a drastic change in my recruiting style based on coming from a Division 2 to Division 1, but I also based on location. I'm from Ohio, and so I knew the Central State's location was not ideal. When I got the UMES job and I found out how close it was to everything, New York, DC, Virginia Beach, I thought this is going to be great being able to recruit because then I can tell them we're not too far away from landmarks or beaches. And so that kind of opened up my scope of where I was going to recruit from. So I just went out and I remember when I got hired, immediately was told that ESPN was going to do a documentary and that they were coming to follow me around in Orlando. And I thought, oh my goodness, like I'm trying to recruit and I've got to worry about cameras but I did. I just set out and a lot of the guys did the work themselves. They sent emails and introduced themselves. And while I was in Orlando at Nationals, I went around and took note of players that I was interested in. And then once I got back to campus, it was phone call after phone call, Zoom call after Zoom call. I set up my recruiting process a little different than I normally would. I normally would set up a phone call with the athlete and then invite them to campus if we felt from there it was great. But I wanted to have the phone call with the athlete and then set up a Zoom or virtual meeting with them and their parents next. Because I really wanted to get a feel for how if I'm talking to the athlete, let me see how they are around their parents. And when I tell you I couldn't have got a better group, every one of them and their parents are amazing individuals. When I tell you, I mean, normally you meet parents, you're like, oh, I don't know. Is it worth, is it worth bringing this athlete on if we're going to have a helicopter parent or a lawnmower parent, but not one of these parents is like that. They are nothing but supportive, nothing, they want nothing but the best for our program. They raise amazing young men. For me, I cared about character first before I did the talent because I know there are some programs that are okay with bringing in players that are bad attitudes, best way to say it. I am not willing to sacrifice. I don't care if it's the best player on the team. If you have a bad attitude, you're gone. And so I cared more about character first, obviously the academics and then the talent. So kind of blending those three things together, uh, these 18 young men. I mean, I have something great to say about every one of them. I absolutely love every one of them. They have come in and hit the ground running and they have helped shape this culture. And so now my assistant coach and I, when we're looking at future classes, we're like, man, we got to find someone that's going to come in and be able to fit in with this group. And I love how the recruiting has happened, and I wouldn't change any bit of it, and yeah, I just it makes me, like, just get choked up a little because I just these young men are gonna do amazing things this season on and off the court, and, um, I am just excited for them.
I'm so excited to hear and watch you guys too. And I think it is a testament to you as a coach. So I think, you're setting the standard of what you're looking for your athletes. And I do think characters, everything, it trumps skills. Attitude is so important and how you treat others and how you treat your teammates and your coach. Parents do stem a lot from that. When you're saying the parents were incredible to speak to as well and are so fortunate to be a part of this program too. So I just really appreciate your perspective on that. I've had times in my coaching career where we definitely had issues with athletes from a buy-in perspective, mentality perspective, and sometimes the clubs that I was at didn't really care. They just, cared more about the money and keeping the player and parents happy. And I get the business side of it, but there's also a larger culture and team dynamic that I feel like long term is very impactful and more positive versus just keeping certain people happy. It's important to and talk about what really stems from the person both on and off the court. So you received the AVCA Diversity Award in 2020. And First Point Volleyball Foundation gave UMES a $250,000 grant to help launch the program. So I know volleyball is expensive. Can you tell us what needs to happen to make volleyball more accessible?
Yeah, I feel like we can capitalize off of women's volleyball. You've got a lot there are probably what, triple the the girls clubs to boys. So if
Mhm.
every club that doesn't have boys volleyball that has girls adds boys volleyball, even if it's just a couple teams for the first year, it will grow. It's like Field of Dreams. You build it, they'll come, right? So
Mhm.
it just I think by not doing anything at all, we'll stay where we're at. But if we continue to get out there and encourage clubs, club owners, directors to just consider adding it. I mean, I revert back to Ohio because that's what I'm most familiar with. But, Mintonette, popular girls club, and they added boys volleyball in Northern Kentucky, NKYBC, popular girls club, added boys volleyball. So I just feel like you won't lose anything because you already have the equipment. It's just like with high schools and college. Don't get me started on the college side. You already have women's volleyball. You have the equipment. Just by adding men's volleyball, it's not going to do any damage to your bottom line. yes, it's not a revenue generating sport, but nonetheless, it's a sport, a competitive sport. And I feel like, again, being a woman, we're all about Title IX, all about it, all about equal access brings opportunity. But then where's that equal access when we're not allowing men's volleyball to be added? Where's the equal access on that side? So I just feel like it's not difficult to add it. And I feel like there are people out there who want to add it and they're thinking about adding it. Stop thinking about it. Let's go out, grassroots, go to have that conversation, go get coffee with a club director or owner, go to that high school, start a club yourself, go to the local YMCA. They've got the volleyball equipment because they have camps. So
Mhm.
go there and say, "Hey, I want to start this little club." And maybe it's not about the profit end of it. It's just about getting volleyball started for kids who can't access it because they can't afford it. Because
Mm.
you and I both know it's not affordable. It is not.
It's not.
It's not. It
And
used
it's
to be
probably what's
where
crazy, it's probably, like, one of the cheaper sports too, because like, hockey's ridiculous. Like, there's just so
yes,
many things, but it's
yeah,
still thousands of dollars for, like, a higher club team and travel.
absolutely. And it used to be the regional teams used to be.
Yeah.
But now even the regional teams, it's
Yeah.
regional is now you're still traveling out of state, whereas regional
Mhm.
used to be just within your state. So it depends on where you're at. But I do think if you started at a YMCA, some high schools would even let you run practices out of their gym because they rent the space. Some churches have gym spaces. I just think if people are willing to go out and do it, that's the problem. And I think if
Mhm.
they stop looking at the profit side of it and start looking at, you got to invest first. You have to invest in these young people before you start thinking about profiting from something. You've got to invest in them. And once you invest in them and you see it grow and grow,
Mhm.
then you'll start profiting from, and not even just from a monetary standpoint, you'll start profiting from the growth of that club and the success that you're having. And I think that that's where we live in a society where it's all monetary based and driven based off of, well, how much am I going to make? And don't get me wrong, we all have to eat, but
Yeah.
what are we doing for the people that want to partake and they want to eat? They don't have, they don't even have a portion of the plate. So can we help them with that?
Yeah. I fully agree, and that's hopefully my long-term goal with this. I would love to be making some money or being able to raise money for athletes who aren't able to pay to play in high school and things that are holding them back. There's a lot of people out there who take action on wanting to help others, and I just really look up to people who are able to do that. There's a lot of help and opportunities out there. It's just finding the right avenues to get that.
Yeah. I,
So, last question for you. You brought up heading to Puerto Rico. What does success look for you guys this year, and what are you guys focusing on while going to Puerto Rico next week?
well, focusing number one on being in warm weather
I love it. Love it.
instead of this cold weather here. But no, we're excited. First Point Volleyball, without their support, we wouldn't be going. So excited that they've been able to support us so that we can, our first year opening our season in Puerto Rico, excited about that. We're looking forward to having a competitive season. We had a great fall. Our fall was competitive. We got to scrimmage against George Mason, Princeton, some big D1 schools. And so it kind of helped us see where we were at and where we need to go. Obviously, still have work to do, but overall, I am very proud of the progress this team has made. We're freshman heavy, but I tell you, that does not mean that we're not going to compete with the best of them. We look to make waves in the NEC and also being an HBCU, the only D1 HBCU, we look to make waves and hopefully like the other HBCUs this season, we also want to have our name in conversations and we've got our own goals internally that I'm going to keep because this just stays in our locker room. But we have our own goals that we're seeking. But overall, for us, success looks like us having a great first year. We're not measuring it by wins and losses or stats, even. We're measuring it by what did we look like when we started in August, and what are we going to look like come April or May. And if we show that we've improved and progress has been made, then that's half the battle, and that's success right there for us in our first year.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all of that, and I'm wishing you guys the absolute best season, and I know it's gonna be amazing. Where can people follow you and the UMES men's volleyball program?
Yeah, on Instagram, we are at UMES Hawks MVB. And then I am on Instagram at Dr. Coach Brockman. I think that's my Dr. Coach A. Brockman. I know, isn't that terrible? Don't follow myself. I don't remember. But please follow. And if you go on TikTok, all the guys are on there. They're making headway on TikTok,
I
posting
love that.
different videos. It is they are just an amazing group, a very outgoing group. But please follow us. Please follow our progress. We appreciate any support, especially being a first year program, and we look forward to making waves in this D1 space. And I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your platform today.
Thank you. It's an honor to have you. Dr. Brockman, thank you so much for being on She Aced That. What you're building is so much bigger than volleyball. You're creating history and already have and opening doors for so many young men and young coaches. And I can't wait to follow your journey and see what's in store for you. So thank you again for joining She Aced That. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for joining this week, and we will see you all next Wednesday.